Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy, and today I'm going to be doing a drafting study date. I've done a couple of other drafting videos. I kind of need to fix up my playlist and just really see where all of my drafting videos are, because I think they're in a random category, which is weird. So I'm gonna get that sorted out at some point. But if you can tell the difference, I'm using a mic for like the first time, so I'm just gonna see how this audio does. So hopefully this makes a difference. So please let me know if you can notice it. So here are 10 tips that I have collected on things to make you a better drafting player for Magic. So, yeah, let's get into it. The first tip I have is sometimes some people look at drafting cards and they say, oh, this card doesn't go with, like, the theme of my deck. And basically the example that I wanted to give is this card called Adeliz, the Cinder Wind. This card's really sweet. So it's a 3-mana 2/2 flying haste. Now, really, you could have just stopped there and I would be super happy about this card, but there's this extra little ability tacked onto it, and it says, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, wizards you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. Now, you may say to yourself, what? I'm not going to draft with a card like this. I don't have a wizard tribal deck. Hey, I'm here to tell you that it doesn't matter. You don't need a wizard tribal deck to make a card like this work. If you just take out that text and honestly just toss it out the window, this card is still really solid. A 3-mana 2/2 flying in haste is awesome. So I would definitely not ignore those stats. But something that's good too is this card is a wizard, so I like to say the phrase, it synergizes with itself, so if you play another instant or sorcery, it gets the buff too, which is super awesome. Card like this is really good, and cards in general that do this type of thing, so don't get distracted by that last part and say, I'm not doing wizard tribal. It doesn't matter, you don't have to. This card is still really good. The second thing I have to say is make sure you pick mana fixing. I am so bad at this when I draft. I need to use my own advice here and really get better at, really just so much better at picking fixing, because it's one of those things where I'm like, oh, no one else will pick up fixing. I'll pick it up later. And then I never do, because it's always like I pick like some stupid common that I'm like, this is really dumb. Why am I not picking fixing? So prioritize mana fixing. It's really important. Even if you're in a 2-color deck, pick up fixing anyway. The third thing I have to say is, this is kind of like a more, I don't want to say like advanced idea, but like something I think that I didn't realize quite until like later on, is really note the rarity in your packs and the cards that you're picking. And basically what I mean by that is if there is a rare or a mythic in your pack, you know that people are going to go after, and I'm assuming it's a good rare or mythic, people are going to go after a card like that more than a common. So one thing that I'll do sometimes is I'll be like looking at a pack and I'm like, wow, like this common is so good. But then I'm like, wait, I'm gonna see a lot of those cards. I'm not gonna see as many uncommons. So if you have like you have a really solid common and uncommon in the same pack, I would pretty much usually pick the uncommon, because you're not going to see them as frequently as you are the common. So that's just something that I would really note, is when you're picking through cards to really pay attention to the rarity. It's going to really help you like make those really important decisions, because a lot of times like the issue with drafting, what makes it so hard, is that there's so many good cards in the pack and you're like, whoa, what do I take? So that's just something that I would keep in the back of your head. Okay, the fourth point, what are we on? I don't know. Is I can't even read my own handwriting. Oh, yeah, okay. So typically what I would really do when you are, when you have a set, is to really pay attention to if it's a 2-color set. So a lot of sets, like actually the card that I mentioned earlier, I'll just use this as an example, is a red and a white card. And a card like this is going to really push you towards going 2 colors or potentially splashing a third. I think a lot of people have it in their head like, I can only do 2 colors, and I'm like, whoa, no. That is okay. You can totally splash for a third, and I think that's really cool. Just make sure you have the pit fixing for it, and make sure the card that you're splashing is really worth it, because I find this all the time, and I'm actually going to give you an example of a card that kind of deceived me, that was kind of a trap. So I want to talk about that example in a little bit, but yeah. Okay. My next point is this drafting strategy, and it is called bread. And I feel like some people have mixed feelings on this, but I'm not saying this is like a live by, like you eat, live, and breathe by this guide. I do think it's really helpful, especially if you're a beginner drafter, just as something really easy. Like, I love mnemonic devices. They're like really quick to remember, and if you're like in a pinch, you're like bread. Yeah, everyone loves bread. So basically what this stands for is B stands for bombs, R stands for removal, E stands for evasion, A stands for aggro, and D stands for duds. So basically, bombs are like just really, really big creatures. A card that, or planeswalkers, a card that you play, and it's going to be, your opponent just needs to deal with that type of card. Removal. God, I'm queen of removal. A lot of times I have issues with flipping these where I take removal over a bomb, and that's my issue when I draft. So that would be one thing that I would just keep in your head. Removal, please just pick up as much removal as you can. I am the queen of removal. Evasion are cards, like things that have flying, basically. Because that's something that if your opponent doesn't have a flyer or a reacher, they're having a really hard time dealing with that type of creature. Evasion is awesome. I am all about flyers, all about that life. And then the next is kind of like aggro. I don't really like understand this category that much. I guess it's just kind of like any good like little cheap aggressive creatures that do things that like have an impact on the board. I'm not really too sure if I understand that one. And then like honestly, I don't think the last part of this make any sense. Like, I think you could really, it's like bombs, removal, evasion, and then aggro's kind of like those filler cards, like cards that are pretty good, but they're not like amazing, basically. They're going to be like a lot of your commons and uncommons and stuff that's just kind of like there. And then D is duds, like stuff you just don't even care about. Those are cards that you're just going to cut because they're like not in your colors, or they're cards that are just really bad. Okay, the next thing, number 6, is to watch your curve. In my head, the way that most drafting decks should go is you think like you're building a mid-range deck. And the way that you kind of think about a mid-range deck is you have like this kind of like curve. So you have kind of like this, I don't know, like what, is this the bell curve? I feel like that's what like this, am I like making any sense right now? Like this little like curve thing. So you have like your 1 mana stuff over here and then your higher mana stuff over here, like 6, 7 drops and all that kind of stuff. And you want like a lot of your stuff to be in like the 3, 4, 5 kind of range. You're probably not going to have that much 1 drops. You may have a couple of 2 drops. You're going to have quite a lot of 3, 4, and 5 drops. And then you're not going to have as many 6 and 7 drops. Now, those numbers are kind of like, you could maybe have like a 10 drop. Like that's fine. You know, you could do things. 10's a little extreme. Maybe like an 8 drop or something like that. But what I would say is to really keep in your head that you want to have something to do every single turn. And that's kind of the really awesome thing about mid-range is that you're having these really efficient creatures that you can play. Like you top deck a 3 mana, like I'm going to keep using this card because this is the card that I use as my example, but she's really good. Like you play this card on like turn 3, great. If you play this card on like turn 7, you're also pretty happy, unless you're just like dying. But anyways, cards like these are just really good. And I would just know that you're making sure your curve is not too high and it's not too low. You really want to hit that sweet spot. If your stuff is too cheap, basically what happens is you're going for more of an aggressive deck. Now, sometimes aggressive decks totally work, and that's fine, which basically means that you have a lot of things that are in like the 1 to 4 mana category, and you just are trying to dump your hand and kill your opponent as quickly as possible. And that sounds like a really great strategy, and I'm just going to let you know I haven't really seen it work a lot in draft. I think it depends on the drafting environment. I think it depends on the decks, but recently that I've seen a lot of these decks are really going for that sweet mid-range spot. So what happens if you have an aggressive deck is you have your 1 mana cost thing that's awful to top deck on turn 12. And my kind of thing is I always like something to do, and I like to be as efficient as I can with my mana each turn. So I'm going to make sure that I'm having these cards that do something every turn. But I'm always, of course, there are going to be moments that you're not drawing well and you don't draw things, like, and that's fine. But like, try to make sure your curve works out, that you always have something to do each turn, and you're working your way up towards your really, really big drops, your bombs. Okay, the next point says, okay, I really couldn't read my next point. Literally, I thought the word said lack and it actually said look, so I was just on the struggle bus right there. But anyways, one thing that I would really say is when you have your draft deck, look at your draft deck when you're building it. This can really, really help you. Like, a lot of times I will find that the person, I end up passing the pack and I have like a couple of spare seconds. Use your time super well. Always be thinking about what are cards I'm looking for, what are cards that I still need, do I still need more removal? I'm always asking myself those types of questions whenever I'm drafting, which is a really good mindset to get into. And pretty much what I like to do is I like to look at my cards and I like to organize them in a very particular way. I organize my cards first off by color. A lot of times you think, especially in the beginning, you think you're going to do one color and then you end up switching, which happens all the time. And so what I'll do is if I know I'm not going to run a color, I will put those cards towards the back. Or what I'll do is I'll actually put them off to the side where I won't even look at them, so I won't even get distracted by them. If I know, like, this is the last card that I got passed in a pack and I know I'm not running blue, I'm going to put that blue card up. There's no way I'm running it. It's just like a 1 mana thing that doesn't even do anything, right? So I will have like my cards, right? And I like put the ones that I want more towards the top. So these are going to be like bombs, removal, cards that I just know are going to be in my deck. Like whether it's that I'm splashing for it or whether it's just a primary color in my deck, I know that I'm going to do. This is a really helpful strategy. I do this all the time in drafting. What I also do is like I count the amount of creatures. I have issues a lot of times where I don't draft enough creatures. 17 is your sweet spot. I've said this before. There's like the perfect amount of creatures. You may have a little bit more. I really wouldn't go less. 16 is like my absolute minimum, but like really aim for like 17. It's just like the best number. And then 23 lands, 5-ish like extra spells, which would be like removal and like pump spells and like other stuff like that, or board wipes or anything like that. So I guess board wipes and removal go together. But anyways, so that's just what I would say for that. Number 8 says, see what colors are going dry and take note of that, and then take advantage of other colors that people are like, wow, like that color was so open. People say things like that all the time. And if a color's going dry, it basically means that no one's really getting that color. Like no one is going for that color because they're picking different things. So that's something to really notice. And again, I think this is a really like higher level of drafting stuff because there's so much going on in drafting, right? You're not only thinking about like your deck and what you're doing, you're thinking, what do I still need? And then you're thinking about like what everyone else is kind of doing and like, okay, it seems like this color is drying up, but like this color really isn't giving enough attention. Should I switch colors? Like you're asking yourself like all these questions, or you should be. And I think that's like a lot to like definitely be really like spatially aware of like what's going on around you. But I would just definitely really see what colors are going dry so that it can really help you, because you may end up switching colors, especially in like the first pack. You may end up saying people are taking a lot of this color, or there's not as many of this color. That means this color is just not going to work out for me. I'm just going to go a different color and it will reward you. Okay, almost done, y'all. So we got 2 more points. So the first one, and this was the story that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. So when I was at my Guilds of Ravnica pre-release, and also too, I guess a lot of these work for limited as well, but I feel like limited doesn't happen as often, that it's like, not that I won't want to do videos on it, but like this is really more for drafting. Anyways, so when I was doing limited, I opened up a Vraska, and Vraska is freaking awesome, by the way. I put her in EDH and she is so cool. So I opened up a Vraska, right? And I was getting help from one of my friends, because a lot of times what happens is you open up a card like this and you're so excited, right? You're like, yes, I get to play the Planeswalker, this card's gonna be awesome, right? And you know you want to play with that card. And one of my friends, and the issue was that my other colors, like I think it was like my black was just not deep. And basically what I mean by that is like it just didn't have much there. It wasn't a lot to work with. There wasn't a lot of removal. There just wasn't a lot of creatures. My black just wasn't good. My green was fine. The black wasn't. Or maybe it was both those colors, actually. I think that's what it was, is both those colors just didn't work. And so I was, like, really unsure of what to do. So I was, like, getting help from one of my friends. And I was like, hey, like, what do I do? Like, I just don't understand. He was like, I feel like Vraska's, like, a trap. Like, I feel like you're going for her because, like, she's a big planeswalker. She's really flashy. She does a lot of things. But, like, your other colors are just so much better. This is really hard. I'm just gonna say this. Like, drafting is so tough. Like, it's not like other formats where you can do research and build, like this is so much in the moment, decision by decision stuff, because like if you don't make a good deck, like that's gonna impact you once you're playing your games, versus if you're in a constructed format, you got time to play with your deck. Like this, you're focused on your games and you're also focused on like how your deck is doing. So there's just like so much stuff going on. So that's one thing that I would be really hyper aware of, is sometimes your pack one, pick one is not going in your deck. And I feel like some people are super jaded, like, I need to play with this card because it's like this 7/7 indestructible dragon and it's awesome. And I'm like, okay, but if your other colors aren't good, or you just, your pod leaves you in a different direction, like sometimes you need to drop that card. I think that's really hard, but really important to recognize in draft. My last point, this is something that I see all the time, is value drafting versus picking the card that's better for your deck. And pretty much this is saying, I'm going to pick these really expensive card because it's expensive, but it's honestly just awful in my deck, or it's the wrong colors or whatever it is, versus I'm going to take the card that's actually really good for the deck. Now, this is really tough to like, people are just going to do this anyway. Like, let's be honest. Like, you can tell people like, hey, you should do this or this, but like, people are just going to do whatever they want to do when it comes to this kind of stuff. But like, and I mean, I'm sure I can't really pinpoint moments that I've done it. To be honest, I really do think when I'm in drafting, I'm very much focused on like, okay, I need to make the best draft deck that I possibly can. It's a really hard mentality to get into, but that's just what I keep going back to is I'm not here to like get cards for value. I mean, I guess some people draft for that reason. I was like, I'm here so that I can make the best draft deck that I possibly can. And I think trying to steer away from that is like really tough. Like, I can't tell people you can't ever draft a value card. And like sometimes you will get it's a win-win where you get a card that you can put in your deck, but you also get a card that is worth money, and like that's super awesome. But I don't ever really go into drafting thinking of it from a value standpoint. I always think, how can I make my deck as best as I possibly can? So that's just something I would be aware of. Is also, too, even if you don't do that, other people may, and that's just something you may want to keep in the back of your head, is like some other people's decks may suffer because they took a really rare and expensive card versus a card that's like going to make their deck better, and that leaves, you know, room open for you to make your deck better. So you can definitely take advantage and definitely do really good things with that. So guys, that is it. I really hope this video on drafting was helpful to you. As I was going through this, I thought of a couple more ideas that I think I want to jot down, so I'll definitely probably be doing another one of these. But that is it for me, and I will talk to you guys in my next video.